Welcome back. In this video, I wanted to take a bit of an experimental approach to building out a web app using ChatGPT and GPT-4. So I'm looking to build out an application with Three.js, which I'm not particularly familiar with. I may have done some very simple examples, but outside of that, I really do not know how the library works. So I want to see how I can leverage ChatGPT and GPT-4 to build out an application, knowing I have been a web developer for a number of years now, but I just have not had the chance to touch this library yet. So I want to see how easy it is with GPT-4. Let's see what sort of prompts it handles well, and from there we'll see what we can work with. So a little bit of my setup. So I'm going to have VS Code. I'm going to be using GitHub Copilot within it. I'm likely not going to be leveraging that as much as GPT-4. The focus for this really is on GPT-4 and seeing what it can output for us and how we can leverage it, especially for libraries that we don't necessarily know. So this is a bit of a raw demo of my experience using GPT-4. So we have our VS Code, we have our live environment. So I have the live server extension here, and then we have GPT-4 here, and then we also have the I'm going to leverage the default GPT 3.5 if we need, considering there is a cap. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm just going to say I want to build a solar system web app in Three.js. I want this to be built within a single index.html. Let's just start with that. So a simple prompt, relatively broad, but I did give it a specific instruction that I ideally want it within a single HTML. So if I show you here, I just have this one file, and let's see what I can do with this. Now it might seem like a lot of code, but just for example's sake, it might help copying files back and forth, especially working into multiple contexts of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Just having it in one place hopefully will make this easier to visualize. So I'll also make this a little bit smaller so we can see a little bit about what's going on here. Okay, so we have a basic HTML structure, and it's also reached out to the CDN for us. Now it's starting a scene. I'd imagine that's probably like the initial invocation of the Three.js library. I'd imagine scene is likely in all examples, if not most. We have the camera perspective, some WebGL stuff. Like I mentioned, not familiar with exactly what this is doing, but let's see what we can do with this code and see if we can get something that's sort of reasonable or even impressive. So if I take this over and save it, let me just refresh. Okay, so we have a green ball. So within the realm, I think given what I gave it as a prompt, I consider this reasonable. It's clearly a working example of something. Now with the green ball, now if I just look for, okay, so we have a sphere, we have material. Now let's go back to here and see what it's saying. So, okay, so it has a single rotating green sphere. Use textures. Okay, let's say I want to add a texture of the earth. And let's say we're going to start with the earth as this green ball. Okay, so I need to load an image, a texture loader, and we have to find an image, and look at that. So it's even pointing me to an image, and it doesn't work. So that's all right though. So let's just say we want an earth texture image. I'll just hop over to Google here, earth texture image. Oh, not imagine, image. Okay, let's see this one. Copy image. Oh, that's the Google image. This is an interesting, not what I was expecting. Let's just use the high resolution. Okay, so now that we've found this, I'm gonna go over here, save this within our folder. We'll see it's 2K Earth. And you know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and change it here, and we'll just call this Earth. Just make it a little bit easier for naming. Okay, so now that we have, so now we have our loader. I see that initial file there. And now it's trying to likely reach out to that location, but we know that that is not working. So we'll go ahead and replace this with earth.jpg. Okay. All right, so there, I'd consider that pretty impressive. So like I said, I don't know anything really about Three.js, but now we have a spinning globe. So I'll just say, I'll sort of go ahead and take this and give the context back to GPT-4. So remember, whenever you hop out of it, do a little Googling like we did and change it within your code editor, ChatGPT, GPT-4, the model doesn't know that context. So just remember to paste it in or provide it at least with the relevant information. All right, so I'll just say I've updated my code to the following. Okay, so now we have a rotating texture. And I'll just stop it here. So now it has that context. And I'm going to say, I want to add the moon. Okay, so to add the moon to your solar system web app, you will need to create another sphere for the moon and add it to the scene. You should also find a texture for the moon. Okay, let's see if this moon works. So once this is done, I'll click that, open it up, and we have a 404. So similar, I'm going to hop over here and I'll just say moon texture. And you know what? We might actually have a moon in this website. Okay, there we go, moon. Let's download this one. We'll save it. Moon. We'll hop back over to GPT. I'll close these tabs to the right for now. It's quite interesting that it can take that texture. So that's another thing not particularly familiar with. So that 2D texture of the world map, how it will just wrap it with not particularly a lot of code here. So pretty impressive how that all works with this texture loader functionality here. And okay, so now I can see we have our Earth, we have our moon, we have a different position, camera position, animation. Okay. So I'll copy this back over into our editor. And what I'll likely have to change here, so it's trying to load that, that outside image. So if I just say moon and save it, and look at that. So we have a moon and an Earth, and they're rotating. Now that moon looks awfully big, but we'll go with it for now. We won't worry about the technical aspect of distances and sizes just yet. Now let's say, again, since I updated just that moon image, I'll say updated the code with the following. And I'll just say, now I want to add some stars around the Earth and moon. And one thing I'll mention, so like I haven't taken much of a look at the code yet. I'm just really interacting with the prompts. As you've seen, I've done very minimal effort here, just really swapped out some images outside of copying the code back and forth. But if I just expand this for a moment, I can sort of get a sense on how potentially to use Three.js. And since this is starting with a relatively simple example and an example that can easily be grown on, like start with a solar system, and it would have been impressive if it did it all at once. But in a way, this is sort of nice that I can start to see, okay, what patterns, are involved in setting up something like this. So, we load multiple textures, and then we have this mesh basic material, where we're sort of mapping that texture and going on, so on and so forth. So I start to get a sense of what I can play around with here and how I could potentially use it. So it's an interesting way to learn something. I think this will likely be an approach that I take to learn something. Now, I'm a much more tactile learner. I like to learn by doing. And this is sort of like learning by doing with the assistance of a tutor that's, right by your side. So pretty neat. Okay, so now as this gets longer, what I'm starting to wonder is if we'll run into limits with our script here. Now it looks at least longer than what we have, but I think we are still okay for quite a while yet. Hopefully, at least. Because sometimes it will just stop with the prompt. You have to regenerate it. You might have to say continue from here, etc. But let's just hope for the best here. Okay, so now we have a little bit more of an example, and it's starting to look pretty neat. And okay, so let's say let's go for a bit of a bolder ask here. I'm just going to say let's add the rest of the planets. Okay, so to add the rest of the planets to the solar system, you'll need to create spheres, etc. So one thing I know, now if this does it, it might give me the broken paths again, but we did have that website that we found that I did close the tabs for. But I could easily go back, find those if need be. They seem to work really well for the moon and the Earth. So once I see it get to the point where it's going to load all the different planet structures, I'll see how many different assets that I'll need to go and look for. Okay, so Venus, Mercury, Mars. Okay, so let's go back on the hunt. Now let me just reopen that tab that I closed here. You can do that with Command-Shift-T if need be. I'm also going to just move this over here. Make sure I don't forget any planets. And let's, I think we got to the first one with Earth texture. Okay, so we have the Earth moon. Let's download Mercury. Mercury. Venus. Venus atmosphere. Okay, so that one's interesting. Venus. We'll just get the surface for now. Mars. Oops. Jupiter. If I can type. It's going to take me to it. Jupiter. Okay, we're almost there. Saturn. I can't type. Can't type or talk. Okay, so download. Saturn. Uranus. Neptune. Okay. So now that I have all of those, okay, so we see that it stopped there. That's all right. We'll copy what it has so far. I sort of figured, I mean, at least with a more bold ask like that from GPT-4, that it had the potential to do that, at least. And I'll just grab this again, move it back over here. Okay, and I'll just say continue. I think I can just say continue. Okay, so it's going to continue from right here. So I'll just get rid of that and get it ready. So we'll just give it a moment. So it's pretty neat. I mean, I can sort of see, you know, like enjoying working with Three.js, especially with this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any different ideas or web apps that you've built with GPT-4. There's a lot floating around out there. I haven't had the chance too much to really build something out from scratch like this or learn something new. So this is sort of my first effort at that. Like I said, a little bit of an experimental video. I'm not going to do too much of an edit on this one. I might just release it raw as is, so you can sort of see the thought process and you know, like me running through this as you know, it's new to me just like it's new to you and everyone else. So. But so far, it's come up with impressive code. So like no bugs, not visually anyway. It's just worked relatively seamlessly. So quite impressed with what it's given us so far. All right. So now we know. Okay, so we need the various images, and what did we do wrong here? So. Okay, so it wasn't from there. That's my mistake. I should have caught that just to show you. Some people probably saw it as it was typing, like, no. Okay, so it's from here. Now if I go ahead and save this, I believe it's from there. Where does it say moon? I think once there's an error, I might have to restart the server. Okay, so it didn't quite like that. Moon position. Let's see what the errors are saying. So expected on line 78 to close this. Set mesh moon. Does it want another? Okay. No problems detected at least, but now where is everything? So we'll grab the console here. Cannot access moon before it's initialized. Okay, so where does this go? Moon position. Let's just say backtrack and continue from create. Okay. Create planets. Okay, so it's gonna go a little bit further than I wanted it, but that way I'm not sort of stuck here where I am. So we'll just go back to create planets. And we'll get rid of this and just wait for a moment. Just to make sure we save these to the right folder. So we have all our assets here. I don't see, while we're waiting, any typos for the different planets. And now I think I saw also it did have the assets, maybe it's up here, assets for the planet now sort of knowing to point locally. So it's not even trying to reach out for those external assets at this point. So it's sort of caught on to what we're trying to do here, which is great. And hopefully it doesn't stop here for us again. Oh, no, and it looks like we have it, the rest of it. So let's go ahead, copy code, put it in here, save. Okay, now we have more going on here. Let's open this up. Okay, so now we have multiple planets going on. All right, that's something. Now I'm sort of wondering about the positioning. So maybe now let's ask a question about, I have an idea. I'll say, I want to be able to drag the planets. Only give me the Three.js method needed to do so. Okay, so drag controls, so it has that built in. So seeing Three.js examples, I've played around with it, or some examples of it before, where you can grab the screen and look around and whatnot. So, okay, so it looks like we have a different CDN that it wants us to add. Planet meshes. Now I'm wondering if it's actually going to have me drag the planets. I sort of meant, maybe I didn't write it clear enough, that I just wanted to drag this around, like the camera perspective, but let's see what this does. Planet meshes, and it says, okay, so this code animate. Should it come after animate? I don't know. Okay, so this is set up. Now I have the Three.js. Okay, so that is not a constructor. Let's just throw this in here. Oh, I should have noticed that. So the controls here, so it doesn't like this examples, a JS script that I put in here. Let's see if this one works. Not found. Okay, so let's just Google this. Well, it'll be interesting to see if this is a hallucination. Like, it'll be interesting if this just doesn't exist. Drag control, CDN. Okay, so here is hopefully a working script. Okay, 3 drag controls. Now that we have this, if I just go here. Okay, so let's just paste this into GPT-4, this mess of a minified script. I am using this version of drag controls, and it accepts it. Okay, so let's see if it can sort of parse this out, a bit of an example of how powerful, potentially, we'll see, GPT-4 is. Okay, so it seems I'm using a different version of drag controls. That's correct. You need to install 3 dependency. Okay, so 3, Okay, so make sure my drag control has access to this. Okay. You know what? It might have been the order, so let's see that. Oops. Not within that other script tag. Oh, I'm hopping around here. Okay, now let's open the console again. Okay, drag control still doesn't like that. At least not that original code, so I'm just going to get rid of this. And instead copy this. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, drag controls is not a constructor. All right, I'm gonna pivot from this one. Good to see a limitation here. Now it could just be, I have a couple drag controls here. One last try. Let's see. I don't imagine that would have been an issue, but let's have a look. So still can't drag. Okay, so I'm going to pivot from this. And let's just say instead of dragging, I want the solar system to spin. Now I want the solar system to spin and also be within relative distances and sizes from one another. So we don't have these big planets and small planets and giant moon close to the Earth. Let's see what it will do with this. I have no idea. Okay, so to make sure the solar system spin and have relative distance of sizes, you need to adjust the sizes, distance, and rotation speed of the planets. Note the actual distances and sizes are too large to fit within a reasonable 3D view. Okay, that's okay. First, you'll have to update the planet data to scale down to relative sizes. All right, so I'll also get rid of this. Planet data. Okay. Okay, so where's our create planet function? Okay, so we're calling that method there, but where did we actually... It's sort of hard to have all of this on one screen. Oh, so it's right here. So I'm just gonna plot that here and update our create planet. Okay, we'll put this here. Okay, save that, then animate. We'll replace those at the bottom here. And we see a black screen, so okay, cannot read undefined of size. So size. Let's just say, I'll say, this is what I currently have, and I have this error. So truly no experience with Three.js. So it's good to see, hopefully it's good to see what issues and errors you might run into and sort of how you can quickly deal with it and not just, walk away from this and say, oh, this isn't useful or I might rather do it a different way. So it's you can get quite a bit done. It seemed like the most momentum I had was with the simple example, and then once I get into this sort of bigger example, trying to make a whole solar system, you start to see the limits, especially coming from someone that isn't particularly familiar with the library. Okay, apologies for okay, so that's a simple mistake. And this might be also an example where ChatGPT-4 has a limit for how many tokens you can use. And from what I've read, the ChatGPT GUI has a smaller limit than the API. So what I've read, and I don't quote me on this, but I've seen individuals speculate that it's closer to the 3.5 limitation of, I think it's 3,500 tokens or so, whereas the API can accept 8,000 to, I believe it's 32,000 for some developers that have access from the waitlist. So instead of planet data here, I'll get rid of planet data, and then we also have ours here. So I'll just replace create planets. And actually, you know what? Maybe it was that we want planets. Let's just see. Okay, create planet function. Oh, okay, so we still want that planet texture. Okay, so replace, okay, where was I here? Let me just go forward a little bit. Okay. Whew. It's hard to see everything, have all these screens here. Hopefully it's helpful to see it all within one screen, but I'm used to having multiple screens here with my, code editor on one and what I'm working on another. But okay, so now we see it spinning. I see one planet. Not really sure what's going on here. But anyway, this is sort of the initial example. I believe if I scroll up high enough, the most impressive example was with the basic example of the moon and the earth, at least impressive within the context of not needing to spend much time to get there. We got there very quickly, so just this one. And then from there, now, if I would have done this differently, a little post hoc evaluation of what we just did here, I wouldn't have gone as audacious, say, just add all the planets and maybe started to add them one by one and, add the relative size one by one and maybe understand that, the relative sizes, it's just not going to work because it's going to be too far. So maybe something that's more illustrative, for an example like this where you can see all the planets spinning and whatnot. So hopefully you found this useful. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty raw one with this one. Not going to edit it too much, maybe a cut here or there, but otherwise, hopefully this was helpful. If you don't have access to GPT-4, you can sort of see how it works. I would be curious to see your experience using it with GPT-3. Similar results, better, worse, let me know. Anyway, hopefully you found this useful. Please like, comment, subscribe if you found this useful, and until the next one.